an Instagram notification, and I thought it was like a message about this live show that like we were planning, you know, the time or something, and it's just Instagram being like, your countdown's almost over, and I'm like, yes, thank you. Like,
I do know that, yes.
I love all the notifications from social media that's like, you are on social media. I'm like, yes.
I think I have all of my notifications turned off for like any social media that I have.
That's
I also
wise.
have removed myself from a lot of social media. I just am like, I'm done with this.
Yes. Good plan. Okay. Are you guys still settling on what craft you're gonna do? Or I know Kelly was thinking about just hanging out because you've had an exhausting unpacking day.
Yeah, I might just like work on that hand quilting, which might end up being me holding 2 pieces of fabric while talking and not actually doing anything, but we'll see. I might go a little bit.
Yeah. Emotional crafting.
Your emotional support quilt, like yeah. I think that I am going to work on my reading journal because I did not do a spread for May, and so I'm like, all right, it's still early enough in June that I can like set up a spread for it, and like I might actually use it.
Yeah.
So that's the plan.
Yeah. You know what's like so frustrating is I can't find my reading journal right now, the one I'm using for this year, and it's like I don't do the like artistic stuff. It's like one of the ones you get where all the pretty things are done for you, and I just write down the books I read. So it's great. And so thankfully, like on Goodreads, I have what I've been reading, and I have been like pretty good about tracking books I've hauled because me and Julia are doing that challenge. So like I have the information, thankfully, but I'm really annoyed that I can't like log it the way that I usually do. It's like I haven't been able to find it for like at least a month and a half now. And I don't know, like I've been in the middle of like organizing stuff, so I'm like I hopefully will come across it at some point. But it's just really annoying because I literally have every single old journal that I've used for like my reading tracking that like ever basically, and I have those and I know where all of those are, and I'm like, where's the one I actually need right now?
Where's the current one? Yeah,
not here. So
yeah, I just found mine today because I had put it in a box and haven't used it in over a month, and then today I was like, I need to find some of the books that were like kind of my books. I had packed like a box that was like books to read now, like to open now, and it was in there. So
good.
I guess I could use it again because I have found it now.
Packing Kelly was kind to you.
What? Oh yeah.
Packing Kelly was kind to you.
Yes. Except for there's a lot of other things that I can't seem to find, and I'm just like living without because I'm just like, I don't know. I don't feel like opening all the boxes. So
I know.
Like it got warm for the first time because Duluth gets, you know, it's kind of still 60s, but it got in the 70s this week. And I was like, I need to find my sandals. And I had to open like 3 boxes before I could find my sandals. And I was like, okay, I need to do better, like preparing myself and telling me where things go.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard too because like obviously if you are packing things to bring, they all have some level of you need them. Mm-hmm. And so it's really hard to predict like, okay, what am I most likely to need soonest?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yep.
Right. Actually, one second. I have to go plug in my little like printer thingy. I'll be right back.
So how is it in California? I don't know what the weather is like out there now.
Yeah, so we are once again in wildfire season. Like we are almost the whole year now because global warming. But like my immediate area, thankfully we tend to stay pretty cool. Like we don't get really bad summers, thankfully. Which is good because I do not do well in not even just the heat, but like I am most comfortable in like 60-degree weather. Like that's what I consider pleasant. So we're at that weird like transition point between seasons where it's like I'm gonna be like uncomfortable in various different temperatures. So there's really no way to like dress for that. So I'm like, actually, I was just thinking now, I'm like, if I open the window while we're crafting, will there be too much outside noise? So we will, yeah.
Well, I'm afraid I'm making too much noise because the only place I can find that, like, because my husband is like installing a dishwasher, so I can't be like in that area. And then like my bedroom doesn't have a chair right now, so this is it. But like the dryer and washer and dryer are both on, so I'm like, can you hear them? Because they're like behind.
I can't hear anything. I can't hear any background noise from you. So
okay, because I was like, because I can't close the laundry room door because that's where the litter box is, and so I don't want to like the cats out. So just kind of we're going with it.
That's right. Huck, did you ever find somebody to talk about Bridgerton with?
No, like I'm not a huge Bridgerton fan, but I do watch the show. And I feel like everybody I talk to, sometimes I talk to people at work about it, but like everyone that I talk to, the conversation just ends at them being like, Anthony's hot and season 2 is my favorite. And like, one, disagree, but two, that's not a full conversation. Like, it's really, I'm trying to find people who are like, I don't know, like not everybody wants to like, you know, just talk about a show or book like ad nauseum the way I do.
I can't relate, but I do hear there are people.
Like, fair enough. That's not how you live your life. But I need to find somebody who has watched this show and will talk to me for a long time about it. But like none of my friends watch it. They're all better people than I am.
I watch you, Huck, if you want to talk to me about it.
Okay. Amazing.
I was wondering, I was like, I feel like Kelly had mentioned before that you had watched like some of it and that you were kind of like Huck, where it's not like your favorite, but you keep up with it.
So. I still have opinions. Like
yeah, like my husband and I watched it together. When we watched it, not the day it came out, but we watched it the next day because it came out, I think, on a Thursday, right? Or something.
Yeah, which was a weird day. I waited till Friday so I could just like binge it after work.
And we ended up watching it over 2 days. We watched 2 episodes and then 2 episodes. And then we're like, now we have to wait.
Yeah. So what do you think of the new season so far? Sorry, Kara, that we're just leaving you out of this now.
I'm liking it, but I think my problem is this is the book that I actually read.
Okay.
So I've only read one Bridgerton book, and it was the Colin book, and it's so different the way they're doing it than the book that maybe I'm having the same issue that other like people that have read the book have had, that I'm like, I don't know that I love the way they're doing it compared to the book. Like there was no like love triangle in the book.
Yeah, I heard like Lord Debling is like a totally new character who honestly, I love Lord Debling. Like I like him better than Colin. And I'm like, look, if I was picking somebody, well, no, that's not completely true. My favorite so far is Theo, who's the printer guy from the second season. If I had to pick one of the lords, I would pick Lord Debling because he is, I'm like, this sounds delightful. His like marriage proposition is essentially being like, look, I'm away from home a lot. Kara, if you don't know who he is, he's a naturalist. So he's very into like being outdoors. He goes on adventures and stuff. And he also is vegetarian, which everyone at the Tom thinks is bizarre.
Yeah.
But he's very much like, look, I'm going to be my own person and like, you know, just be who I am, even if everybody thinks that it's weird. And he wants to find somebody who also has their own interests and passions and hobbies and is like willing to just be their own person and not like follow society. And he's like, I go on a lot of trips. So I need somebody who will like stay home and have their own interests and not care that like I'm gone for long periods of time. And I was like, that sounds fantastic. Because I also, I was like, I have a lot of hobbies that I never have time to do. And if I like had the
A rich guy, yeah.
yeah, just like the money and house and staff and land of like a lord, that'd be incredible. I would just spend all of my time, I'd like do all my crafts. I would probably rescue like 1,000,000 dogs. Every time he came home, I'd be like, look, we have 10 new dogs. Come meet them.
And you would like them because he likes animals.
Exactly.
You'd be like,
And
sure.
then, yeah. And then like, yeah, when he came home, I'd be like, you know, tell me about your adventures. I'll show you the cool stuff that I made. We can go on like low-key nature walks and you can tell me about birds. It'll be great. I think it sounds fantastic. And he also was just super nice and seemed like a person who like, he genuinely seemed to enjoy people who are like being their own self, you know, which I appreciate.
Well, and that's the danger of like introducing an alternate love interest where it's like if you do too good a job with them, it's like dump this other guy. Like,
well, see, that's the thing is sometimes I go back and forth where I'm like, yeah, sometimes it's like you created too good a rival. But also, if there's a love triangle and the like alternative isn't good enough, and then you're like, this isn't a love triangle. There's just some other random guy here for no reason. You know?
I don't know if we need to like state that this is like potentially spoilers. Like if you know, like
oh yeah, sorry.
But, like it's
I just
not
went off.
it's not that like I mean I think I like him. I get why she, you know, doesn't ultimately like want to pick it because like, you know, there's like a love, you know,
Yeah.
and like connection. Like, yeah, great. There's a lot of stability. Like in that time, it would be great for a woman to have like the stability, but then there's also like the dream of actual like companionship that and love. I could see that.
Yes.
But for me, like, I think why I don't like love his introduction is it like kind of takes some focus off of their building their relationship because and it's just like a focus on jealousy instead of like in the book it felt like it was more like him just like slowly recognizing that they've grown up and like that she can be more than just a friend, you know, like, and I'm sure that that's kind of like what is happening, but it just felt like much more of like time for them to be together. And there's just not as much time. If you introduce a third person, you got to split the time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love Lord Debling, but I will say I agree that I think that it really should have spent more time on the two of them. Like there were a lot of side plots in this season and I enjoyed them a lot. Like I love Francesca's side plot. I don't really think Benedict's is that interesting, but whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I agree that it needed to spend more time, especially I feel like on Colin, because I think that like Penelope, we know is obsessed with him. Colin's feelings are the thing that's like changing. And I just feel like we got like a little bit of it, but I feel like you needed more time to like show that gradual change. And like, but that's interesting what you're saying that it's like in the book, it was more about him realizing that they've grown up and not just being like, well, now I'm jealous, which like, I think the jealousy thing is probably an easier trope and like an easier and quicker trope to employ to get them there. But I like the idea of them like actually like falling for each other or him falling for her because he's like, oh, we've actually grown up now. you know?
A woman I can talk to and like,
right.
You know, connect with, because, you know, on his travels, he's probably just having like, you know, illicit affairs and not actually like talking with a woman or whatever, you know, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm home. I'm ready to like maybe settle down. And I realize I have a person right here that I can talk to and connect with and stuff. So I felt like that was, and we just didn't get much of them connecting. Like we had that one scene where she reads his journal.
Right.
And then we had like,
which I kind of hope something about that comes back around because I feel like that was significant.
Yeah. And then like, there was like a couple scenes, you know, when they're like kind of doing the fake the bargain or whatever of helping her. But even in those, it didn't feel like they were very long scenes. It was only like a couple. And so I'm like, we could have had more scenes where they're just like
for sure
together, or maybe have that be longer. This whole teach, if they were going to go that route, because that doesn't happen in the book either. This whole teaching her to flirt or whatever, like that could have been more. And so they could have been more times together alone to teach, and maybe having like a dance lesson or something like that, where they're touching to build some tension. But there was like, no, it was like we had a couple scenes, and then all of a sudden, like, he's having like sexy time dreams about her. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, where did this come from?
Also, I feel like they should have like had that happen more than just once, because like his whole speech to her is about how he like dreams about her and all this. I'm like, that happened literally once. Calm down. Like, they should have had it like happen like more, like, I don't know. And they weren't even like long dream sequences. I just feel like it should have been more of a thing so that it made more sense.
And I get like the side plot, like obviously as you go on in seasons, you're going to have more side characters we're invested in. So there's going to be more side plots. But if that's the case, then why not add episodes?
There's only 8 episodes total. Like, they could definitely add a couple more episodes. Yes, I agree.
But now that we're in the 3rd season, there's more people. Make it a 10 episode.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
And then that way you can spend more time with your actual couple that are supposed to be the main focus, and we still can have those like side plots. But now it felt like we hardly spent any time with them. It was like so much side plot.
Kelly, didn't you say in the book that Colin was like way more aggressive than you would have liked? So like you would think, hopefully they're going to change that in the show. You would think that they would see this as an opportunity to make show Colin better. Like, I don't know. That's odd to me.
Yeah, and already, like, their interactions are definitely, I mean, even though there's not enough of them, it's not like enough dedicated time on the romance, their interactions are better than in the book to me, because in the book, he is very aggressive and possessive in the book. And like, this would be a big spoiler, so I won't say it. Like, the main plot point isn't the jealousy, it's the revealing of, the big thing that we know, about.
Well, I think that's going to be the main plot of the second half, it seems like. So
yeah, well, that's like the whole book basically is that, but he gets like really aggressive about it in the book. And so I'm assuming they're not going to like make him, hopefully they're not going to make him super aggressive. Like, I felt like he was very aggressive in the book, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
The thing about like the use of like jealousy as like a motivator for a character to realize they have feelings about somebody, like, if it's done in a certain way, I don't mind it, because I think that sometimes, especially if it is a situation like this where like a character is maybe in denial that they have come to feel a certain way about a person, and they don't realize that until they're literally faced with the prospect of that person with somebody else. But I feel like it's really easy to do wrong, because a lot of times, especially because it is almost always, if it's a man and a woman in a relationship, it is almost always the man who reacts this way. It really can come off like, well, I don't want this toy, but if somebody else wants this toy, I need to keep it. Like, I don't want anyone else having it, even though I never wanted it. And then like they sort of default to, I guess I like this person now. So
yeah, that's not great.
Yeah, and I do feel like that's more what it's feeling like than him like really coming up with this on his own.
Yeah, that was the other thing, is I just feel like because we didn't spend enough time with Colin, like, yeah, you very much get that feeling. I also was kind of like, I just felt like I kind of was like, I don't get why they like each other, like, other than they've known each other a really long time. And it kind of took, like, I went back and I watched some like compilations of like, clips of them together from the previous 2 seasons.
Make me care.
Right. So I was like, okay, like I get it more now, but I feel like they should. So like, I don't know, maybe they were just really leaning on the fact that this is the first couple that has been like we've seen the two of them interact in previous seasons, but I feel like they needed more of that in this season to build up like why do they even like each other other than they've known each other a long time.
Yeah.
And then like also on Colin's part, I feel like, well, okay, I think that he, because they also don't like really build up his perspective of like why does he like her?
Mhm.
It starts to feel like he mostly likes her because she tells him how great he is, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, do you genuinely like her, or do you just like that she likes you? And she's like, wow, you're so clever. You do such incredible, like, that's incredible that you've traveled. I want to hear all your stories. And it's like, that's
Yeah.
like great. But also, why do you like her?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And I also just feel like then in comparison to like because they created Lord Debling as this character who like granted was offering a life that was not particularly romantic, but he just seemed very like he seemed much more mature because he knew like what he wanted and what his life was, and it in comparison it just made Colin feel very immature and very like I don't know who I am or what I'm doing and I just kind of like you because you think I'm cool.
Yeah. Where I think it wouldn't be like the books, but I think if Lord Debling was Francesca's love interest, that would have made more sense because that's kind of like she's just looking for a quiet home.
True, although I love her and Lord Kilmartin. Oh my god.
Which is like from the book. Like
yes.
So, but like he didn't make much it made sense that he isn't like the one for Penelope because Penelope's also always been a romantic, you know, that's important to her. Where someone like Francesco or even Daphne, not Daphne, Eloise, like they might not be as needing the like big romance. Like,
see, this is funny because when you guys were describing Lord Debling, I did not assume that was like a non-romantic offer. I was like, oh, I love a love interest who has interest.
Well, because he specifically says that because she even says, "Could love come?" and he's like, "It's possible, but it's not like."
Okay.
Yeah, he kind of says like my hobbies take up a lot of my time, so I don't know if I'm gonna have time for romance.
Yeah, basically, he says that.
But like also, just I feel like he seems like a really cool person that you could. I think that he underestimates that, you know, as long as I mean, if he's away from home all the time, then I guess you wouldn't really be able to like create a relationship. But I liked him, and I was like, I feel like that could be a fun romance also. Like you could have a whole romance where he's like, oh, we're just having it's a romance of like a marriage of convenience.
Yeah, and that's a classic.
It's like, oh my god, we actually like each other. Like that I feel like it could happen. I like him a lot. He has a good personality. He's not like sorry, I keep talking.
I came up with a great idea. And so Shonda Land has to know this, that like we need a spinoff that is starring Lord Debling. He finds some lady that's and he's like, oh yeah, whatever. But then she turns out to be an adventurous and wants to like come with him on all of his adventures. And so then they go off together to like visit the Arctic.
Then who takes care of his estate? That's the question.
Oh, he's got money.
He's got a valet, like
fine, fair enough.
But they go on adventures together and they fall in love checking out lizards in the rainforest or something.
Saving the birds.
So that's what I want is like a Lord Debling like side show.
That's honestly like I just want like little mini series for each of the like discarded love interests because like in the first season there was the prince who Daphne flirted with, but he was nice. I want to know what happens to him. In the second season, I want to know what happens to Theo and also what happens to Edwina. Like we kind of hear like, oh, she married someone and she's happy, but like I want to know more. We now need to know more about Lord Debling. Like we need these random like side characters to have their whole thing. No. Also, this is unrelated to that, but the like romance that they're building up for the mom
Mm-hmm.
Is that in the books or is this like a TV show thing?
I don't think so. I mean, not in any of the one book I read, but like from what I've read, because I probably read too much Bridgerton like gossip online. But like from what I've read from people that have read all the books, I do not think that she gets a romance in the books.
Okay, I don't like this romance because like I just don't understand. Like, first of all, I just don't really like his vibe. There's something weird. I just don't like it. But also, he's like what, the brother or something of Lady Danbury, and she doesn't like him. And I'm like, I like Lady Danbury. You're really not selling him to me if a character I like doesn't like him. And his vibes are already weird. I don't know why. I just don't like him.
Oh,
Listen,
so one thing
those are good instincts a lot of times. Like,
well, we'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen because obviously I don't think it's like canon. But one thing that I think that is a miss from the adaptation from the book was Lady Danbury, because she in the book is like really pushing, and maybe this will be the second half. She is the one that's pushing the whole let's find out who Whistledown is. Like is like leading the way on that, and like is a really strong character in that book, like because of that plot line. And so it'd be interesting to see if that's what happens. Like if she is the one that kind of was like, let's find out. Let's everybody, start looking. Because like
isn't it like in the book? What's Eloise doesn't know yet, right? That's like in the show. That's a thing.
Yeah. I don't think anybody knows until this book.
Okay. I can't decide on a color palette for June. I'm kind of going in the direction of greens and browns, but it just feels uninspired.
Mm-hmm.
What about greens and like another color, like yellow, like
or pink? Green and pink.
I like green and pink together.
Green and pink, like when I was little, I was like obsessed with green and pink for a little while. And so it just is like, I think I oversaturated myself for a lifetime.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm looking out at lilacs. So green and purple.
I did green and purple recently. That was, well, for April. I didn't do May. So green and purple was my last one. That was here. This was my April one. Green and purple. So it's a nice color combo, but I want to do something different. I don't know.
Does it have to be green?
No, it doesn't have to be. I don't know, was feeling, I mean, I like green and it feels appropriate for summer.
You could do like a light blue.
What have I done before for June? I don't know. I just don't know what's the vibe for June. All right, I'll think about it more.
It depends on where you are, because like here, it's just now starting to get. It feels spring. It does not feel summer here. So
it's starting to get summery. Like it's in the 70s and 80s, so it's getting warm. But today it feels like late spring. But
yeah, I was supposed to be going to. I am going in a few days to visit my friend in Ohio, and I was looking at the weather, and I'm like, it's gonna be in the 80s. Like I don't know what to do. I've been in the like 50s and 60s for so long that I like do not know what to do about that. I'm gonna melt. Like today, it got up to 70, and I was like, whoo! I'm like, hot. I have adapted to the northern temperature.
I think honestly that is part of what happens, is that like our body temperatures are so adaptable that like even if it's somewhere that you're very familiar with the weather, if you're away from it for a little while and you come back, you're like, no, I can't do this anymore.
This is no.
When I just it was so beautiful here when we moved in the summer, because I was coming from Ohio where it was hot and 80s and 90s and humid, and then to come here and it's like you could still be outside, but you're like sweating like crazy all the time. I'm like, I much prefer this where it's sunshine and You can have the breeze off the lake and everything, but it can be upper 60s, lower 70s, and that's a great. So I've decided that this is an ideal summer for me. I just don't like to sweat.
Yep.
So what are you, Kara, did you ever say what you were making?
No, I don't think I did actually.
yeah.
So here is what it is looking like. Very exciting. I basically have a circle, but I really
start.
like what's that?
I said good start.
Yeah. I do really like the yarn a lot, which is good. I'm making a sort of camisole tank top sort of thing. Which I'm obviously excited about how it's going to look in the end. It's just funny because like whenever I start knitting any kind of like top or something, there's like that period at the beginning where it's like I'm just making a circle for like what feels like 100 years. Like,
and then it becomes a tube, right? You go circle, and then it's like tube.
Yes, well, it is a tube right now. I've just been saying circle because it's easier, but yes, it is actually. I'm knitting a cylinder.
Yes.
Technically.
I could knit, but I don't know. I'm just not feeling inspired. I'm not feeling inspired to do anything. I don't think I showed you guys this project, the fabric. I decided to finally buy fabric from the Nice store because I had done a couple projects and I was like, ooh, I'll buy the wool fabric. So that's the wool yarn. So this is really pretty.
Fun colors.
Yeah, it's pretty. I just don't feel like doing anything.
I understand. Yeah.
So we're just going to put that back and do it another time.
Yes. You're like, here's what I could be working on. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. I just like it. The last month has been so exhausting and so nonstop that like just sitting and chatting is like kind of lovely.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, I'm going with blues and greens. Hopefully it looks okay.
Yeah.
It'll
look beautiful. It'll look like water.
I like blue and green, so.
I don't use blue a lot usually, so we'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now I have to decide which color goes where.
I'm going to get a sweater. I'll be back.
Okay.
I'm going to open my window. I'll be back too.
Right.
I guess I could turn my camera off as
Hello, Natalie has joined us. Oh, this is going to be very strange lighting, I realize, now that I have the window shades open, but we're just going to accept it and move on.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Yes. If you guys are hanging out in the comments, let us know what you're doing or working on. Yes, I had to check back in so I wouldn't be too spoiled for Bridgerton. Yeah,
sorry.
If we start doing something like that again, I'll put a little tag up. I should have done that before.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't think about that. And it just like went off.
You had a lot of feelings to get out, like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back.
Hello.
The sun is starting to go down, so now it's getting back to cooler.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna paint my nails. We're gonna go with that.
Sounds good.
Sounds like a good plan.
So I would not suggest starting a full-time job the day after you move into a new house.
That sounds tough.
Yeah.
It is not the best timing, but you know, it'll all be fine in probably like a month when I don't feel like every single day at work is like learning a million new things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we'll be more settled, so it'll be fine.
And I feel like it's hard, like when you're starting a new job, at least for me, it's always hard to even tell. It's like, do I like this? I don't even know until after like the stressful introductory part is over, basically. Like, it's hard to even get a sense of like, is this a good like work environment? Who knows? Am I feeling good here? Who knows? Like, check back in a month.
Yeah, I mean, like, at least I like, it's exhausting right now, and it's just like constantly learning new things because I haven't worked in an office in 9 years, and so QuickBooks has changed a lot in 9 years. Like, the software has changed, like the thing, like using all the different things that they use, are different, and the registration software, because it's like a nature center, so we have camps and preschool.
Oh, cool.
So there's like registration softwares and all kinds of grants.
Oh no.
What did she freeze?
I think, like, Huck, I can still see and hear you.
Okay.
Maybe it's on Kelly.
Huh.
I mean, last time I did a stream, my computer's internet was like all over the place, but mine is showing okay.
Sorry, Kelly, it's me.
Okay, yeah, you were frozen for a bit, like, but you were talking about registration programs and stuff, like.
Yeah, so it's like every day is a new thing to learn, which just like makes your brain. I mean, like, it makes your brain hurt to like learn new things. It just makes you tired. Like, so like it's like every day I'm learning a new thing. But now that I've been there, basically I've been there a whole month, and like since it's a lot of financial stuff, it's like I just did the reconciliation from the last month, so I feel like now we're just starting the whole thing over again.
Yes.
So now I've learned it, and now I'm at the where it'll become like part of the routine, because part of like the joy of like this job is that they're like, go walk on the trails, be outside, because it's like a nature center. But I have literally only been out on the trails twice, and both of those were part of my like training, somebody like taking me around. I've not had time to do that, but now that I feel like I have a little more under like a whole month under my belt of like the systems, I feel like I could go out and take a walk and see the kids and like have a good time. So hopefully it'll get better now.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be really nice to be able to just go walking like that.
Yeah, it's like thousands of acres of property. Oop, my kids do not sound like they're doing good up there, but yeah, it's like thousands of acres of property. Like, the city parks and, mountain biking and hiking and all that stuff. So
yeah, cool.
Skiing in the winter. So I could go like, not, like cross country skiing. So I could like cross country ski, like at the place I work.
Wow.
So fun outdoor activities.
Did you guys want to do any kind of like the kind of thing I normally read, or like the kinds of things I do on my channel? Up to you. We're very casual with introductions in these reading sprints, crafting sprints rather.
Sure.
Go ahead, Huck.
Thanks. Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I mean, my channel is Badger Reads. I have not been posting a lot recently, but I did just post a vlog today. But I mostly read mostly fantasy, probably mostly historical fantasy specifically, but fantasy in general, and then a smattering of other genres a little bit. I'm trying to get more into sci-fi, which is part of my vlog is about, but also I had a big binge of like contemporary romance earlier this year, which I still need to wrap up and make a video about. But, I dip my toes into other genres, but mostly fantasy. I guess that's pretty broad. So I can say like some favorite authors are like Juliet Marillier. I love Tessa Gratton, and my brain is blanking as to any other books I've ever read.
What is book?
What is book? I don't know. Yeah. Go ahead, Kelly. That was my unorganized pitch.
Yeah. I read a variety of things, though right now maybe reading like a couple books a month, so not as much as I used to because of all the stuff going on. But I mean, in general, like the stuff I'm interested in, I like fantasy, I like do some sci-fi, I like middle grade speculative fiction, like horror, some like adult horror, but it can't be like gory or creepy too much, you know. And mystery, some. I do like a little smattering, a speckle of everything, like nonfiction. Some romance, but I'm very like picky about my romance as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a little bit of everything. And right now, basically all I'm posting are like wrap ups. I think that's pretty much what I've been doing. I did like a TBR for May and June together, so I probably won't do another TBR till end of this month. But I pretty much have just been trying to keep up with my wrap ups, and that's like about all I can handle at the moment.
I'm in the middle of trying to catch up on mine as well. Natalie says you're gonna get some strong hiking legs, and yeah, what are your favorite books? What is words? That is exactly how it feels like. And I even have moments where I think to myself, like, all right, what are some books I love that, depending on the person, but in general, I feel like these would be good recommendations just, you know, for a lot of different people. Like I even have those like little thought experiments with myself. And then somebody asks me and I'm like, I can't help you. Like literally, this is what I talk about for a huge majority of my life, or at least of my time on the internet. And I'm like, no thoughts and empty.
No, that happened to me recently. I was talking to someone from work, and they mentioned reading fantasy, and I was like, "Oh, I read fantasy. Like, what fantasy do you read?" And we were talking about it, and then he was like, "Oh, what kind of fantasy do you read?" And I was like, "I don't remember. Like, I don't know."
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah,
I'm same. It takes up a huge amount of my like time and brain space, and yet nothing.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, I just feel like I have forgotten, like, or maybe I'm just not reading books that I'm just like absolutely like getting obsessed or loving lately, which is making me sad, which is why I had said in that TBR that I just want to like put aside or DNF like books that aren't like really loving, because I just want to read some stuff that I can have as like, I love this book and I want to tell everybody about it. And I just haven't had very many of those lately.
Yeah.
And
I was really bummed because I started this month with a 3-star and a 2.5 star, and I was like, oh no, like that's not the tone I want to set for reading month. But like, thankfully after that, I've been reading things that I've enjoyed a lot more. But yeah, and also because I'm doing the Amazing Readathon this month, which is like basically the only competitive readathon I do. But it's a ton of fun and I really love it. And it really does help motivate me to read a bunch. But I was also like, you know, if I'm reading things that I'm not loving, it's going to be a lot harder to just like, oh, put them down and pick up something else. So.
Yeah. I don't know. Like last month, I ended up just putting down so many things because I was telling myself I had to love it. And then I'm like, do I just not love books anymore? Because like none of these I want to finish. I mean, I ended up finishing, like my first book was almost a 5-star. I read it in like 2 days and I was like, yay. But it was so close, but it was like a romance and the third act breakup made me grumpy. And so then I was like, oh, you were so close to being 5 stars. And then like I finished a CJ Tudor book, but that's just because her books are just kind of like compulsively easy to read. But I wouldn't say like it's definitely not a new favorite. Definitely wasn't 5 stars. And so I'm just like, I just want something that's like.
I'm constantly torn about 5-star TBR predictions and things like that because it's so fun to do. I love doing that. I love like thinking about that. I love seeing other people's predictions. Like it's a great time. But I always feel like that puts the books that I read at like a disadvantage because I think there are times where if I read something with the expectation that it could be a favorite, I think it makes me, I don't want to say more critical, but I think it makes
Puts
it
pressure
makes
on it.
things, yeah, it makes things stand out a little more. Like I just recently read Year of the Reaper by Makia Lucier, which is fantastic, and I do really recommend it. I gave it 4.5 stars. But I feel like if I had read it myself, as opposed to being part of like the 12 friends pick books for me, I feel like it could have been maybe a 5 stars, which is like, I love having friends pick books for me. So I don't want it to sound like well, maybe that's the problem. Because I don't think it is. I think it's just like the way that I think, I don't know, the way that affects my like my thinking process going into books. I don't know. It's like I'm adding all this unnecessary pressure. It's me. I'm the problem.
Yeah, and I think there's something spontaneous about you pick up a book and not having any expectations, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm just like really enjoying and I'm really loving this, and then it becomes a 5-star, where if you're going into it like this better be a 5-star,
Yeah.
and then it has a lot to live up to. Like I feel like that one that I really loved that was almost 5 stars, it was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, and I came in because I did not like book 1.
Yeah.
And everybody kept telling me, oh no, just try the second one, because my big problem was I didn't like the main character in the first one. They're like, okay, well, it's a different character, hopefully you won't have that same problem. And yeah, so I came in really low expectations, and I was like, well, I'll give it a try. And then I really like loved it until she like had to have a third act, but that's like a big problem I have with a lot of romance books, where it's like everything's going fine, and then all of a sudden we just gotta throw another conflict in there. But yeah, I was not expecting to like it as much as I did, because I didn't like something else by the author. But if you go in like, especially at an author you loved before, like if I go into a T. Kingfisher and I'm like, this is gonna be 5 stars.
Yes.
I've had a few disappointments lately. Then I'm like, well, I think I'm putting too much pressure on T. Kingfisher. I just have to like pick it up when I want her sense of humor, and not put expectations that it's going to be my favorite.
Yeah. Well, and like a couple years ago, I read Little Thieves by Margaret Owen, which I feel like is having a little bit of a moment, which makes me happy. But I feel like when it first came out, it wasn't getting a ton of buzz. And then I think maybe near the end of the year that it came out, it was maybe like, I think it maybe won, was it like a Barnes and Noble book award winner or something like that, where like people were paying attention to it, and I thought it was excellent, so I was very happy about that. And like I loved that book. Like it's one of my favorites I read that year, and it's one that I like constantly think about. And like the second book was delayed, I think a couple times, or maybe it was just a really long period in between, and so I was like so anxious for it to come out, and I still haven't read it. Because like I loved the first book so much, and like friends of mine who have read it, they're like, oh, the second one is like also really great, like you're gonna love it. I'm like, I really want to, but I feel like I can't read it yet. Yeah.
Did you see what?
Yes, I was looking at Natalie says read The Odyssey lately, Emily Wilson's newer translation, and I'm super into it, but I confess I'm not the first person to enjoy The Odyssey in the past 2,000 years.
But you should be able to be excited about it if you're loving it.
Yeah, that is cool though. Like I understand why it feels silly to be like, The Odyssey is good actually. Like I don't know if you've heard of this like little known author named Homer. Like pretty cool, but
this story that so many other stories are now based off of, and so many like the whole hero's journey is based off of. But it's great.
I feel like that sometimes with certain classics that I pick up, and even like the concept of like a relatively underrated classic, I know can sound kind of silly, but it's like when I read Anne Bronte, it's like to call one of the Bronte sisters underrated sounds absurd, but I feel like she kind of is, because like she didn't write Jane Eyre and she didn't write Wuthering Heights. She's the other one, but like
the other one.
Her 2 books are so good, but it seems silly to be like, have you ever heard of these Brontes? Like, they can turn the phrase. But yeah,
I do need I think I would like to read that translation, because I've never read like the Odyssey, like the whole thing. I mean, I obviously know all the story from, I've read like some children's versions of it, and I've seen like movies, and I've seen, everybody just kind of like socially knows the Odyssey, but I haven't actually fully read it, and I think I would like that translation.
Yeah, that's if I do read the Odyssey itself, that's the translation I've been planning to read.
I mean, I recently read, what was that called? The Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood.
Yeah. I do like that. I feel like the era that we're in of like female-centered mythology retellings. I know Margaret Atwood's was like older than this, but like Jennifer Saint, for example, I really like this particular style where it's like we are going to do historical feminism in a way that isn't just like girl sword, girl have sword, girl fight good, you know, like I just find that very repetitive and narrow-minded. And so even though like I know a lot of people like Jennifer Saint's books are apparently like slightly divisive, which I didn't realize, but I really appreciate the way that she like it's just the way that she writes about women having stories. Like it's partly about like what they do, but it's like she gives the women in her books agency just because she writes about them like they're people, and like she understands that like you don't have to be like the queen of the Amazons, you know, like fighting and stabbing men to be a historical woman who thought of herself as a person, you know, like
I really like Jennifer Saint. Like Elektra just like was so good. I thought that one, I mean, I haven't read all of hers. I've only read, and I forgot, Ariadne. And Ariadne was not 5 stars for me, I don't think. Like it was good and I really enjoyed it, but Ariadne's story isn't like necessarily compelling the whole way through. But that's kind of what you're saying. Like she had a life beyond the Minotaur. So like, yeah, it's not gonna be as exciting as that story, but there was like more to her story. But Elektra was just like so crushing. Like just that whole like the House of Atreus, so messed up.
Yeah.
All of their family dynamics. Yeah. So like it made for a very
I am really excited for that one, and I'm trying to prepare myself that which like it's totally fair that Jennifer Saint takes this point of view, because like in the original stories, from what I know, Clytemnestra not portrayed super sympathetically, and I as a Clytemnestra apologist, I'm like I need to accept that that's not the direction she's going, because yeah, like I need to be okay with that. And I have the other one. It's by Costanza Casati. I think it's just called Clytemnestra. So that one I think is going to be much more like in the vein of like, yes, she did bad things, but also like her husband did sacrifice her daughter on an altar so that he could get a good sailing wind.
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel about it.
There's some big trauma, and he definitely needed some rivet, you know, like
I just freaking hate Agamemnon. Like he's one of every time he pops up in the myths, I'm like, ugh, like this guy.
Yeah. Well,
which is funny to say, but
like I wouldn't say like she's not a sympathetic character necessarily, Elektra, but she's also not the villain. I think that all 3 of the women, well, I would say mainly her and Elektra, they're just a messed up family. And so it just showed like it just met. So it's not necessarily that neither of them are the villain or neither of them are that sympathetic. They're just, this is the whole point is like generational trauma. Like this is what they've been dealt. And so I don't know. I wouldn't say it's like necessarily like all like, oh, she's horrible all the time. It's just, this is what the hand she's been dealt and the decision she's making with that hand.
Yeah. And I also think a big part of it could be just the values dissonance of when those stories were first being told and like today modern audiences. Because like in ancient times, like the law of hospitality was like literally inviolable. I can't say that word apparently. But it was so sacred that it was like one of the, I think, isn't it one of the like main things that the Furies could punish people for, I think. And also like the act of like killing a family member or like you know, like those were obviously that's still taboo today, but it's like to an extent that like from what I understand, they wouldn't have had the same like feelings about extenuating circumstances that we would today. Like, and so I wonder how much of like the way that retellings tend to portray things is informed by not necessarily like the same values, but it's like it's been so long and we've like had these stories around for so long that it's sort of like we have this leftover feeling of who the good guys and the bad guys are. Does that make sense? Like it's, I don't know, it's interesting to think about. I think about this a lot where like, you know, who would have been considered like the most evil character when it was first being told versus today. I think it would be different.
I'm sure that also influences how they like frame the story, which can impact who you feel is like the good guy and the bad guy.
Yeah. Oh, they talk so much about Agamemnon and Clytemnestra in the Odyssey. That's like their favorite illustrative example of a bad wife. Yeah, that's like how I tend to see in like older sources. I tend to see her described that way versus like Penelope, who is like the perfect wife. Yeah. I'm so excited for Jennifer Saint's book about Hera. I can't wait. Like,
because Hera,
I'm really excited.
I'm very interested in what that would be like because Hera is not a sympathetic person.
No, like, it's
be like,
and I have such like conflicting feelings about her because she like the absolute worst like woman hating woman, you know, like because she's always punishing the girlfriends of Zeus rather than Zeus himself. But also on the rare occasions where she does punish Zeus, I love it. So I am like very intrigued to see how Jennifer Saint like approaches her story.
It'll also be interesting because it'll be the first like god that she has.
Yeah.
Because they've all been like, I mean, some of them might have been, I don't know, have any of them been part deity? I don't think so. Well, I guess, is it Atalanta? Is she part?
So I just read Atalanta pretty recently, and I don't think she is. Like she grows up with like the nymphs and Artemis, but I think she's human.
Okay. So like all of them have been humans that interact with the gods, but she's never had a main character that is a god or a goddess. Like,
yeah.
So that'll be interesting because we have had like some of the gods show up, but like I'm assuming Zeus is going to be a main character, which will be interesting to see how she portrays Zeus. I don't know. I just like her writing, so I am excited for it, but I kind of find the humans in those stories like more interesting than like the actual like ones with that can just do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Sorry, my cat's in a box. I don't know if you can hear.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how she does it because I think you're right. I think one of the draws about her stories is that like even though they are these like larger than life myths, like the characters in them, like she writes about like humans, like ordinary people who get like thrown into these like you know, wildly high stakes situations. Atalanta, I guess, is a little unusual in that she is like a classic hero. She's like famously the only female Argonaut. But even her, it's like she is an incredibly good fighter and huntress, but she's mortal, and so that's different. Yeah, I think I'm pretty hopeful about Hera just because like I was not sure how I would feel about Atalanta when I read it because it is much more of that like classic like warrior girl, you know, like this is how you be feminist in historical times is you like run around with your bow and arrow and you can beat all the men in a foot race and everything, which to be clear is also very cool. I just feel like we get saturated with that kind of story a lot. So I wasn't sure, even though I had liked Ariadne a lot, I wasn't sure how I would feel about it. But the fact that I still really enjoyed Atalanta, I think to me, it's a good sign for Jennifer Saint's future books. Like if she can sell me on this one, I feel like I probably will like her others as well.
And I'll be interested to see if like she actually really focuses on Hera or if she actually focuses on how Hera affects those around her. So maybe we'll have, I'm trying to think of who like is it Perseus? Like Perseus's mom was one of those that was like punished by Hera, and
so like so many.
So I wonder if they'll focus on the women that have been like hurt by Hera because of Zeus. If that might be more of the focus instead of just being like kind of her backstory, but more like
Right.
if we're
Or
centered
like,
on the humans.
yeah, when I read Ariadne, I was really surprised that we get a point of view section from her sister, but I really liked that. I think that gave like a really interesting like perspective on the story, and I think that plays into the things that we've been talking about with Jennifer Saint that we like, which is that like she talks about different women's experiences, like different ways of like, you know, being a woman in the world and all of that. So I kind of wonder, like you're saying about if Hera is going to focus also on like the human women, I wonder if we're even going to get like some chapters that, you know, are in their point of view or like focus on them in a way. Like that would be really interesting if it's like the point of views are Hera and then some of the human women that she, you know, destroys or like ruins the life of.
Mm-hmm. We've lost Huck.
I haven't read any of her books, but I'm listening. This is interesting.
This is payback for all the Bridgerton talk I didn't join in.
Sorry. I just got for my birthday Atalanta, so I'm excited to read that one.
Yeah. It was interesting. Like, I think for me, I didn't like it quite as much as Ariadne, but like I said, I was so impressed that I really liked it anyway. So I'm very excited for you to read it, Callie.
I feel like some people don't like her because for some reason they're comparing her to Madeline Miller.
Yeah.
And personally, I like her books better than Madeline Miller. And I know that's a controversial opinion, but I don't know. Whenever I read the two Madeline Miller books, I feel like there was a lot of pacing problems in her.
Well, that explains. I don't care.
What?
But yeah.
Yeah. So like for me, I'm like, whatever. Jennifer Saint, like, I feel like she, I don't know, maybe the pacing is, I don't know. I just prefer her writing, and that might be, and I think it's just personal preference. Yeah. But I don't think you should like people should be like, oh, she's like a second rate. I'm like, no, she's just a different style. Like,
you're right. She's doing her own thing. Like, yeah.
You can like both.
I loved Circe. I have no interest in Song of Achilles. And I did really enjoy her short story Galatea, but I understand why a lot of people don't. So I'm sort of like all over the place with Madeline Miller. Like, I am excited to see, you know, what mythology stories she writes in future. But yeah, I do sort of feel like we've fallen into that trap of there's like a really high profile author who does a certain thing. And so then anybody else who even remotely writes in a similar like subgenre, it's like, oh, you're a second rate version of like this author, or like you're trying to do this, but it's not as good. It's like, well, they're, like you said, Kelly, it's like they're doing different things. Like she's, yeah.
Because she's not like Madeline Miller isn't just focusing on the women. I mean, yes, Circe was, but Song of Achilles was two men. Like,
yeah.
So it's not like, but where Jennifer Saint is specifically focusing on just the women.
Yeah.
So she's doing a different type of thing. I mean, if you're going to compare her to anyone, you would think it would be Natalie Haynes, because she's also just focusing on the women. So like, they're more comparable than.
Yeah. Which I still need to read her fiction. I've only read one of her nonfiction books, but I loved it. So I am encouraged. And one of her books, like the one that I actually bought somewhat recently, was 1,000 Ships, which is like her Helen of Troy retelling. Mm-hmm. I have been looking for a good Helen of Troy retelling for like most of my reading life at this point. So I am so excited. Mm-hmm. I hope I enjoy it. But the fact that I really loved Divine, no, not Divine Might. It's the other one.
Yeah, the other. Oh. Well, now I know, because I have read
Pandora's Jar. Pandora's Jar. I loved that one. So I feel like I definitely like her perspectives on myths and like the stories she tells. So I'm hoping I'll like her fiction too. I feel like I will.
I also got Divine Might as my birthday present. So I got both Divine Might and Atalanta and a collection of Daphne du Maurier stories. So those were my birthday presents. So, Hawk, what have you been reading?
Yeah, you guys can continue on and don't worry about me.
I think we've exhausted the the mythology, the Greek mythology conversation.
Yeah, I mean I don't read a lot of the Greek mythology retellings, although I think I just was saying to Karen like a message that I kind of like, that I feel like in I just feel like I've been seeing kind of a shift from like direct retellings to more like using like more loose retellings, or using them as like inspiration for like more of a metaphorical retelling, which I enjoy a lot. Because I recently read, well, at this point, it was maybe a couple months ago, I read Icarus by Kay Ankrum, which like is not an Icarus retelling, but the main character's name is Icarus, and there is a love interest named Helios, and that definitely like like as a metaphor is like part of the story of like Icarus not being able to stay away from the sun, you know. And there is a scene where they fall out of a window together, so like but so like I like that kind of thing, where it's like I love seeing like the hints at the stories, but not like as much the like one-to-one retellings.
Yeah,
you know?
I can love and appreciate both. I do like that we're starting to see like some variety, but it's like I also love a more straightforward retelling as well.
I mean, I know you love a retelling.
Your brand. You know
who you
are.
You
know that I enjoy. What did you say, Huck? What did you say?
I was just saying that is like your brand is loving retellings. So like
it kind of is, yeah.
I enjoy a looser retelling most of the time. Like sometimes I like a direct retelling, but most of the time I'm more of like a loose inspiration kind of retelling.
Which is why I feel like I should have expected the perfect overlap of our tastes with the Blackthorn and Grimm books. Because like that is, I mean, not that I've read nearly as much Juliet Merlier as you have. Like I feel like you're like legally qualified to be like a Juliet Merlier like expert at this point. But like truly, that series is by far my favorite thing I've read from her. And this is kind of what we were talking about, where it's not like she's an underhyped author. Like I feel like especially in more like general reading circles rather than just like on, you know, book reviewing internet.
Right.
Like obviously she's doing well for herself.
Yeah.
She's doing very well. But I feel like relative to, at least from what I've seen, like the books of hers that get talked about more, I don't feel like this series is. And I love it. I think it is it's such a cool blend of like a little bit of fairy tale and a little bit of like a mystery subplot.
Yeah.
And great characters and great themes. Like the themes of these books are so good. The historical feminism, so good.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that is like, yeah, it's a kind of in like the Venn diagram of taste. It's in that like slice where it's like, yeah, there are like fairy tale retellings, but it's more like allusions to them, or like it's like a looser like retelling, or it's just like a little piece of a fairy tale is retold in it. Which I like. And yeah, it is like each one, it's not like I would not categorize them as mysteries, but each one has its own like mystery arc that it is following.
And sure. I have found actually, what's that, Kelly?
What series is this?
Blackthorn and Grimm. The first book is Dreamer's Pool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've actually found over the last few years that even though I don't read a ton of like straight up mystery or thriller books, like I read very few of those really, I really love when it's a genre I enjoy and there's also a mystery. Like I love fantasy that has a mystery subplot. I love historical fiction that has a mystery subplot. Like I get why people who read a lot of mysteries or thrillers would be frustrated, because like I don't know, it's like if you're going into it for the mystery, you probably will not have a great time. Yeah. Like that's not the main point.
Yeah.
But I like having that as like a subplot, or like a way that the characters are interacting, you know, that they're like working on solving this weird thing happening together.
Yeah. I also think that in terms of mystery vibes, like I don't really read much like genre mystery, but I would compare it more to like a cozy mystery as opposed to like a mystery thriller or like, procedural mystery, like things like that. It's not like that. It's more like a cozy mystery, but like still even less mystery than an actual genre mystery.
Yeah. Like the tone is not like a cozy because it can be very like about very intense things, but I feel like like you were saying with the focus, like if you're reading cozy mysteries, you're not going into it to have your mind blown by the mystery.
Yeah.
And yeah, like that aspect I think is similar to some of these others.
Yeah.
To combine the two things we were talking about, I am currently reading Threads That Bind. Have you heard of that one?
Yes. Okay, I own that one too.
Yeah, and it is both Greek myth retelling because the main character is like a descendant of the Fates. So like there's like in every generation there's like, or however, I don't know if it's every generation, but like in that family line, they will get the powers when there's 3 siblings. So it's like 3 sisters. So they're like
that's cool.
The Fates. So one cuts, one draws the thread, one weaves, all that stuff. So it's just like the Fates. But then it's also solving a mystery. She's a private detective.
Oh.
So I'm like, let's combine.
Yeah. Kelly here with the like perfect segue.
Tie it all together.
Yeah. I haven't gotten far enough into it to like know if I'm gonna love it, but so far I'm finding it really interesting. The combination of kind of like this whole like the powers through the Fates, but then also like we're solving this murder mystery, and she's the one that's solving it because she can see the like threads of lives, and like that's what it's like. Somebody is messing with the like threads of lives, and so she one that can do it.
That's another thing that I really like is when there's like a specific reason that this character who you wouldn't normally think of as being an investigator, like there's a reason that they are. Like actually the one I read earlier this year is set in historical Poland, and I really, really liked it. The main character is so much fun. She's like the classic, like, she's a bitch, but I love her. Like, cause she can be like very pushy and a snob, and like she's not always likable, but when it's like important stuff, she is a good person. And she's also just so much like fun to follow. And one of the things that I really loved about that mystery is that she's just like this random society housewife, and everybody assumes she's like an idiot because she's a woman. So she's able, and she's also just really good. Yeah. She's also just really good at like social situations and like knowing people and like getting a sense of like who has the power in like a situation or like a relationship. Like, so she is great at like going into like the murder that actually happens, or like the disappearances and everything. It's like at basically a nursing home that's run by a bunch of nuns. And of course, she's a wealthy society woman who does charity work. So of course it's normal for her to go in and to talk to all these nuns. And so it's like, it makes sense to me that she would be able to get all this information that the police wouldn't have or wouldn't care about, because they're like, oh, like, it's a bunch of women. What are they going to know? They don't notice things. So I really enjoyed that. Actually, it made me think, Kelly, of that play that you recommended to me, Jury of Her Peers. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Like when you were saying that, I'm like, that's like Jury of Her Peers.
Yeah. So I really like stuff like that, where it's like the author does such a good job of like, this is why this person is sort of like perfectly set up to solve mysteries, even if like other people wouldn't expect it. Like, I love that.
Do we want to do a sprint or anything?
Yes, our classic, like we do one actual reading sprint and the rest is
I also need to grab some stuff, so it'll be good timing for me.
Should we just do, since we're probably only going to do one, should we do like to the hour, so it's about 40 minutes? Or do we want to do like shorter than that? What do you think?
That works for me.
It's fine with me. Yeah, I might go get my book and sit and read. So
yeah, I'm gonna probably, because I realized I didn't eat lunch technically. So
Yeah,
I'm
I was
gonna
like,
get
well,
something
if
to
it's
eat.
that long, I might actually eat dinner. So.
Yeah. So I'm gonna eat, and I probably will bring my book back and actually do some reading on these.
Okay. Oh, do you want to see? I
theoretical
finished my June spread, so you can see how the colors turned out. This is how it turned out.
I like
Ooh,
it.
cool.
Yeah, I like it.
It's not
Okay,
my favorite color
so
combo I've ever done, but I think it's pretty good. Okay,
It is
sorry.
pretty
I keep talking. Go ahead.
no, I love it. I love it. All right, we are going to do an actual sprint, so we're gonna be like muted and everything. We're gonna go until the hour, and we'll see you guys then for more crafting and talking. Probably.
I want to ask a question because I might
Yes.
start this. Do you think purple or blue?
I
I
think
go
if you're
purple.
okay. I think if you're I mean, I tend to like dark polishes more, but if you're going for spring, I was gonna say blue. You could do purple and then like an accent nail if you want.
Okay.
I was thinking the purple would look good on your skin tone, but
Oh, that's true.
I think I might do purple because this feels like super summer.
Okay,
It doesn't feel super summer yet, so
that makes sense.
go with purple.
Okay.
Now we can go.
All right. See you in a bit.
Hello.
Hello. I was like waiting for the clock to change. This feels like the longest minute. There we go.
Yeah. I was like, it's getting there.
Yeah. Welcome back, everybody, from our official sprint.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I got one hand, one coat, and was reading. So I guess that's all I did.
Yeah. I had late lunch and I also got to read a little bit, so feeling good. I feel like I've made pretty decent progress. Look at how much longer the cylinder is now.
Woo, there you go. Is this are you trying to get it finished for this summer, or are you thinking it's for whenever?
I'm not too worried about time frame. I mean, if it is in time for this summer, that'd be great, but I'm not that worried about it. Especially because, like I was saying earlier, our weather is typically a lot more mild, so I feel like there's going to be longer that I can wear things. Welcome back, Natalie.
Yeah, I was because I haven't really been doing any crafts for like the last month, so but I got for my birthday a book about like shawl patterns, and I'm like, well, maybe I will just be waiting a while to do any of the patterns. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, and sorry, go ahead.
I was there might just come a time earlier when I have more time, but we'll see.
Yeah. And I feel like it's hard with like handcrafted things. It's hard to like plan for the season like in 2 seasons, you know? It's like because like you said, it's like you don't necessarily want to be working on like warm things right now. Mm-hmm. But when it is the time that you would want warm things, like you already will need them. Like,
yep. So that's what I'm like. I was like hoping I would finish some this summer so I'd be ready for fall, but might just be that I'll be waiting for fall.
Yeah.
To start any of that stuff.
Yep. I'm trying to be a little more, I don't want to say like flexible, but a little more like varied with the kinds of yarn I use. Like, if I make something in cotton, then I can wear that a lot more often because it would be easy to like layer something over it if I need it, but also it should be cool enough for most of our summer weather. So trying to beat the system.
Yeah.
Huck, we are discussing the difficulties of planning crafts for future seasons. Because it's like you don't feel like working on them until it's the season that you need them, and then you already need them.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, urgency is always my best motivator. And so every time I have like I work remotely, but every once in a while we have in-person things that we do. And every time we do, like 2 weeks before I decide like, oh, I need to make this thing that I can to wear, like it's always 2 weeks before I realize, oh, I don't have something, like, oh, I don't have like, dress pants that I want to wear or something. And then I'm like, I need to do this. And I never finish it in time. Except this most recent time, one time I did, because just like, I don't know, we knew about this very like far in advance. We had an in-person like workshop, like an all-day retreat workshop thing that we were doing. And I actually finished making a pair of pants so that I could wear them to it. And I was so excited.
Amazing.
Well, like you were sewing a pair of pants? Is that what you're like?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I just saw a video clip recently. It was, I think the craft show it was from was like years ago, but it's one of those like yarn festivals. And so they have, people are sitting around and like working on stuff in addition to all the shopping. And there's this one little girl, I don't know how old she was, maybe like around 9 or 10, and the person who's doing the video is like asking her like, oh, like, what are you making? You know, she's like, I'm making a dishcloth for Mother's Day, and if I don't finish it in time, I'm making one for Father's Day. Like, that kid is
amazing.
Like,
She knows
what's up.
Yeah. I would like in April, I started a quilt for our bed because I've never actually made a quilt for like our king size bed because it's a big undertaking. And I got like 2/3 of the way through doing the top. And then I had to put it away because of the move and everything. And now I'm like, I really wish I had that quilt finished because it is getting warm enough now that like my big fluffy comforter is too warm, because in Duluth you don't really do air conditioning, so it's just like just warm enough to want a light quilt. And I'm like, oh, next summer it's gonna be great, but this summer is another time where I have to go through and just like take off the comforter, and then we sleep like we each have like, because we only have like smaller quilts, so it's like we have one shared sheet, but then we each have our own like top quilt. So it's like
just like temporarily sew those quilts together.
Yeah. There we go.
Just like basting stitches, you know, you can take it out later and then you like perfect.
Because it's just like too hot to wear like to have this big like comforter. And because like, you know, with no air conditioning, it doesn't really work. So next summer it's gonna be great.
Next summer.
It's the same for me here. It's like we don't have, like, a lot of places in my area don't have air conditioning. Because thankfully we don't tend to get, like, it's not like other places in California where you absolutely need it. But for those like few weeks or so every year when you wish you had it, it is like not fun. And there's always this period between like spring and summer, or even like sometimes the end of summer into fall, where it's like I basically have like 3 current sets of pajamas and I never know which one I'm going to wear on any given night, because it's like, who knows what the temperature is going to be. Like, nobody.
At least now we have a ceiling fan, which helps enormously.
Yes.
Because in the rental we didn't, and so I'd just be like laying there hot, and I'm just like, give me a fan blowing on me. Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you guys have this problem too, is that last summer, because of the Canadian wildfires, we had the hottest days we had in Duluth were also the days we had to keep our windows closed because of the air quality coming down from the fires. So I'm sure you have those days where you're like have bad air quality days, or also the hot days. And
Since I've finished my reading journal spread, now I'm trying to decide. Like, I made a little section for a TBR, and now I'm like, oh, I didn't actually plan what the TBR is. So I'm like trying to decide what it is. But I haven't been reading a lot. Sorry, I kind of like went off on it.
No, you're fine.
No. Listen.
But I haven't been reading a lot lately, so I'm kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to be in them. I've been so all over the place.
You're like, when did I still read?
When did you read your sci-fi? Because I know you posted it today, but were you?
Oh, that was in January.
Okay, so you're not in sci-fi anymore. Okay.
Yeah, I filmed that vlog in January and then just like sat on it for 5 months. Yeah, and then just edited it. So
I do that so frequently that I am grateful I haven't gotten a haircut recently, or it would be really obvious like how long.
Oh, I just said, like, I didn't film an end to it. So yesterday I just was like, hey, it's 5 months later and I forgot to end the vlog. Here's what I remember from the last time.
I have clips from a vlog that was like the retelling. Like, do you remember back when I said I was going to do all this retelling? Well, I filmed a bunch of clips for one of them, and it's been over a year. And I think I should just post it, even though I totally had short. That was back when I had like the short bob, and I should just like do it and different glasses. And I'm gonna be like, okay, it's over a year later. This is what you're getting.
Yeah. You know, I think it's fine. I have other stuff. Like, I have another video that I actually filmed in January that I was just editing today, that I was like, whatever. I'm going to post it 5 months later. I don't know. I've been very busy and just have not had the energy to do videos. And so I'm like, okay, I'm hoping to be like motivated to do like a flood of videos, and then I'll probably disappear for another like 5 months.
Yeah.
Well, there you
Natalie says,
Love big time
honestly,
jumps.
I love big time jumps, which you
Awesome.
are with the right people.
I do like it when somebody films a vlog that they've planned over several months and you see like the changes. And then them like one person, I can't think of her name. Her name's Chloe, but I can't think of her channel. But she did like a couple years ago, like for her Christmas thing, she had her mom the previous year wrap a bunch of gifts, and every month she would open one and she would talk a little bit about what was happening that month and then like read the book. So that's what she did like for, you know, the days leading up to Christmas. It was like, you know, December 1st was from January and December 2nd was from, you know, so you got to see like each day
That's a good idea. That's cool.
yeah, the time move. And I think she had like, you know, she had a lot going on in her family and moving and all this other stuff going on. So you got to kind of like see her evolution of her entire year in December.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is way more intentional time jumping than I've ever done.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is usually just because I forget or I lose motivation.
No. Well, and also like, and I think we've talked about this before, is like we all have, you know, certain reading moods, or like, you know, especially if we're reading like a wide variety of things, it's like the point of themed vlogs is that they're themed. Like they have like a similar thing between them. And so it's like the one that I was doing where I was like trying to get better at finding romances I enjoy, and I finally had to just give up and do the first part because I was like, this is taking me way too long. I still haven't gone back to do the second part. And like part of the problem is that like the reason I have a hard time finding romances I like is because I don't get in the mood to read them as often as other things. So it's like
essentially how I am with sci-fi. That's like,
yeah.
I'm essentially doing the same thing with sci-fi because I'm just like, I just am so rarely in the mood to read it. And so then I never find new sci-fi to read.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why I never posted that Sleeping Beauty vlog, was that I burnt myself out reading a bunch of Sleeping Beauty ones. I had like a plan of how many I was going to read, and then I burnt out after like 4, and then I never finished the video. And I'm like, well, it would have been better to make this like over time, and if I could somehow organize the footage and keep it, then I could be like interspersing other things. But reading a bunch in a row was not a smart idea.
Yeah, the people who I've seen people do videos where they're like, I read 5 dark academia books all in a row, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I wouldn't like it.
yeah.
I would hate dark academia forever.
I
That's
actually, oh sorry, go ahead, Hawk.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's kind of one of the things I actually talked about in my vlog that I just posted was like the first time, because I started this project last year and then didn't do, but what happened is I read too much sci-fi in a row, burned myself out, didn't read sci-fi again until like the very end of the year. And so I was like, all right, new plan is this is just documenting whatever sci-fi whenever I read it. We're not trying to fit it all into 1 month.
Yeah, I think that's a better way. I think I need to start doing it that way. Just
This is new to me, so we'll find out if it works.
keep the footage somewhere, but like, yeah, spread it out, because that's my problem. Like you said earlier, Kara, with the 5-star predictions, it's the same thing. I get burnt out because I have all these expectations, and then I'm like, well, I don't want to read these anymore, and then I never like post the finished, you know?
Yeah.
So really, it is just better to take your time.
Yeah.
And I have thought about recently, because I was trying to think of ways that like I can still do like themed content like that, because I enjoy doing it and I think it's interesting. Like I like watching it from other people, and I think it's an interesting way to sort of like, I don't know, group things that you're interested in, I guess. So I want to be able to do it, but like I don't like feeling pressured for time, or I mean, not that I ever like do anything about that pressure. It still takes me forever, but I do feel a little like weird about it when it's like posting, like most people do vlogs, it seems from what I've seen, in a relatively short time. Like it's more unusual that you'll have somebody where it's like, I've been reading these across like 6 months and here are my thoughts. So I feel sort of like
seen that though.
you have, okay, I don't see it
Well,
super often, at least from the people I follow, but
It's not that common, but I know that like if you ever watch like Books and Lala, she has some short-term vlogs, and then she also has some like months long projects that she does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I like her longer projects, so
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
that's good to know, because like I've thought about if there was a way that I could do, like some people do like vlogs, you know, where it's like these are just things that I'm reading lately, and it just is like a weekly vlog or whatever. And I have thought about doing it more by like time. So I'll have like the sort of like TBRs of like different themes that I want to look at, but then I'll be reading from multiple projects. But then the only thing is like, then they're not grouped. And that's part of the point, is that you want to group that. I don't know. I'm struggling. The answer would be just get better about like timing.
Just be better, Kara.
But I'm not going to do that. So just do better. That's my solution. Do better.
It's fine. Yeah, I know. I think I'm also like, I'm at this like point where I'm just trying to figure out my future of like BookTube, like that I don't want to like give up on my channel completely, because I do like the friendships that, I mean, like I wouldn't have met either of you two if like I didn't have a channel, and I do like talking about it when like I have time. So I'm trying to decide, like, I'm not doing this to make money. Like, obviously, like I don't have enough, so I don't have to really worry about the algorithm, because you know, like some people have to like post certain times in order to like make their money, because like the algorithm will forget you if you don't like post. So like, am I just like, okay, I'm just gonna stick to just doing like maybe only one video a month, or maybe two if I have time, and that's still okay and still part of the community, but not like making a big deal about it, and that's okay. Like I'm trying to like decide if that's okay, because it used to be like I posted 1 to 2 times a week, and I did that for like 3 to 4 years, and it's like been the last year that I've just kind of like don't really know what I'm doing anymore.
Yeah. Well, and there are like plenty of channels that I follow and enjoy where they do have, it's like closer to like 1 or 2 a month, you know, kind of schedule. So I think like, yeah, I think because it should be about what you enjoy doing and what you have time for without stressing yourself out. And if you end up with more time later, you know, you can always go back to doing more, but like it doesn't, it shouldn't be something that you have to do a certain frequency for it to be like worth it, you know, or yeah, I don't know if that was
no, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of in a similar spot where like last year I kind of like disappeared for big chunks of time, and I've sort of been doing the same thing this year. But I'm like, I don't want to like not have my channel and not post, because I like doing it. I like, you know, I like making the videos and talking to people and like all of that. But it is a lot. It's very time consuming, and I've been busy recently, and I just have been like, I don't know. So it's been like, and also I haven't been reading as much recently. I've kind of been in a bit of a reading slump. And so then it's also kind of like less, it's like harder to make content when you're not actually reading that much. But also it's just like, I feel like at this point it would feel weird to not have my channel, because I've been doing this is it could be like 7 years now. Like that's a lot, you know, but I also was posting like at least weekly. I went through phases where I was posting, you know, even 2 to 3 times a week. But the last year and this year have been more like, every few months you get a couple videos and then I disappear.
And I know some people have moved to like Bookstagram or TikTok, but I just don't think that's right. Like TikTok just isn't for me. Like I know that like my style is I just want to, if I'm going to do a video, I want to be able to just talk and babble. I don't want to be short.
Yeah, I'm
not a short content person.
I talk way too much for these short content apps. Like, no.
And also, and I just don't even like to watch those kind of reviews, because I'm like, well, you're not giving me enough. I need more.
Right. I'm like, what is this telling me? But also like YouTube is social media, but it feels less like social media to me. And that is a thing like last year and this year. Starting last year, part of it for me also was just like kind of pulling back from social media in general, because I kind of was like, you know what, this is not really for me.
Yeah.
And as a platform, YouTube feels less social media-ish because
it's media, but it's not very social.
That's true. Maybe that's why I like it better.
And you can ignore it. Like, I feel like stuff like, I mean, I've never done TikTok, but stuff like, you know, Facebook, Instagram, any of those that I've done in the past, like, you can get in those like kind of obsessive, like, oh, are people what like commenting or liking or all
also
stuff.
It feels much more demanding, like because short form content is so much faster to make. There's like this demand for like immediacy, and I just feel like on YouTube there is more of a like, because it's more long form, it's like, yeah, you aren't like expected to like engage every second, you know?
Yeah. So you could disappear. Like, sometimes I don't answer my comments for 2 weeks. And I mean, I feel bad, but then I'm like, well, I don't think the people on YouTube care as much. Where if you were doing that on Facebook, people are like, why are you answering a comment from 2 weeks ago? People would not like, I think it's more kind of, that's weird. Like, you have to do it right away or there's no point in doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I also, one of the other reasons though I was thinking like, oh, I need to keep my channel is because that I recently have been thinking about how I'm like, wow, I have a lot of thoughts and opinions about the books that I read and media I consume, and it needs to go somewhere. Because like, I recently was hanging out with a friend of mine who like, we went on like a 2-hour hike. Probably 90% of that was just me telling her about the series that I had just read, like explaining every book in the series, all of my thoughts, feelings, and opinions, and then also reviews that I had read about that and how I would refute points from those reviews. And I was just like, oh my God, like she so graciously listened to this entire rant, but I was like, man, this, if I was making videos right now, this probably would not have been like, I still would have told her a bunch of stuff, but it wouldn't have been nearly as long, and people would have the option to opt in or out of listening to this.
I was actually just thinking when you guys were talking about like, you know, wanting to decide like a direction for your content, but like you still want to keep it. And I was just thinking, it's like, yeah, I can't imagine, especially now that I have been making videos about books for a while, I can't imagine going back to like, where do I put all of my feelings? Like, I need to have an in-depth like monologue about this book and why I hate it or why I love it. Like, I need that outlet. It's just like for my own like mental, physical, spiritual well-being.
For me, otherwise it gets inflicted on my friends, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
I'm kind of wondering, like, my thought, because the videos I've been enjoying doing, because I even put off doing my wrap-ups, the videos I'm enjoying are when I do kind of like currently reading, like Friday read type thing, where I don't even like really edit them unless I like totally something weird happens or a cat like destroys something or whatever. For the most part, I really don't edit those at all. And I'm just chatting about what I'm reading. But for some reason, a wrap up feels like I've got to like be succinct in how I like talk about, and I have to have certain points, but it's basically the same content. It just, for some reason, I feel like less pressure when I'm not calling it a wrap up.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if I should just move over to just calling it all like currently reading or current reads or recent reads or something like that.
And I mean, there are definitely people that do that. I've seen that as like a setup that people will do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's also why some people do vlogs instead of wrap ups and stuff, because they're like, I don't want to like wrap things up in a succinct way. I just want to like tell you all my feelings as I'm feeling them, and like as I'm reading, and I'm just like, here are my thoughts.
Yeah. And if you do it more regular, like I think if I were doing that, then I would just like maybe pick a time every 1 to 2 weeks that I would do that, because I think part of the wrap up thing is like right now I haven't wrapped up May yet. It's already a week after. So anything I read at the very beginning, because I had read a book at the very beginning of May, finished it by like May 3rd. Well, now it's been over a month since I've read that.
Yeah.
A lot of my feelings about it, I'm like not really in it anymore. So I'm like, it probably would be better to just like come on and casually talk.
Yeah.
And just
Another thing that I have realized about, like, I don't know, my media consumption is that I think that I tend to be very like critical of things, not as like a hater, but I just am like, I have a lot of opinions about it. And also a lot of, I think this is something I was also thinking about, that like, I think this is something I did before, but having a YouTube channel has like made me do more, is really pulling apart, like, okay, what did I like? What didn't I like? Why didn't I like this? If I didn't like it, what do I think it should have done instead? Because like that is some of the things that like makes a good review. If you kind of go like, oh, here's what I think would have been better, or like stuff like that. And I really like doing that. But when I talk to people in real life, I think it makes them sad because they're just like, oh, you hated it and now I'm sad. And I'm like, no, I thought it was fun. I just have a lot of other opinions also.
I just want to talk about it in a whole thing.
Yeah, I just have a lot to say. And like I can have negative opinions about things and still enjoy them. Like, anyway, not everybody like in real life wants to talk about things the way I do, and the way that people tend to on like, you know, BookTube. And so like, I need to have my channel so I have a place to put all of those opinions. And again, people can opt in or opt out of listening to them. That's fine.
Yeah. Ooh, I have to like readjust. This chair is so old.
Oh no, you froze.
Can we come back?
I think we lost Kelly.
I know. Her chair was like, how dare you badmouth me?
Exactly. Sabotage.
Okay, you're back, Kelly.
Yeah, my internet every once in a while just decides to die.
Yeah.
I don't know.
When I was having my internet problems, I think it was for our recent Phantom of the Opera discussion, and it was hilarious because I am not a fan of Raoul. I mean, like, honestly, all the men in that book are trash, but Julia likes Raoul a lot more, and so it was funny because like several of the times where I just like completely got like booted off and I had to get back on the live show is when I was complaining about Raoul. And it's like he cursed my computer. Like,
Beer's like, come on, Carol, stop.
yeah.
Well, I've never read the book. Is it like the play?
So what I always talk about with Phantom is like, I like all of the versions for different reasons. Like, I think there are definitely like big pieces of the story that are the same, but a lot of characterization things are different. There's like a few extra characters. There's like this whole weird like subplot that is very much like period Orientalism of the day. There's this one character who's just the Persian. And he's like really important in the book, so you get to sit through that. And there's like definitely flaws in it, but I do enjoy it. There are parts of it that I really love, and there are like lines that I think about a lot, and it is like I think it's a really interesting book in terms of like what it says about, you know, how people can create monsters with their treatment of people, but then also like you are responsible for your own actions. So I don't know. It's like, I think it's worth reading, but I wouldn't say like, don't go into it expecting to be like basically the same as the musical, because it's not. There's like quite a bit that's different, but
well,
the big pieces are the same.
Thinking about Raoul, man, I have a hard time with that name. That I don't think he has much of any personality in the play, because I think there's just so much focus on Christine and the Phantom that we don't get much of him other than just like, oh, he's good. He's love, but there's not, I don't know. I don't really feel like you know anything about him.
Yeah.
So I figured the book must have like more about him if you have that strong feelings of him.
Yeah. Like I remembered liking him a lot more in the book because I had read it several times before, and I didn't like him as much as I remembered, but he does have more personality. Unfortunately, some of his personality kind of sucks. And also another big difference actually that you made me think of, Kelly, one of the big things that the book does differently, or I guess I should say the musical does differently because that one came later. But like Eric / the Phantom, he is really like not romanticized at all in the book. Like really, really not, which I think is an interesting choice because I think in the musical it's much more like, oh yeah, he's bad, but like also you're kind of interested. Like that's kind of what they play up with like him and Christine. And in the novel, that really isn't the case. Like I feel like even on the Phantom side, it's not super clear if his interest in her even is romantic necessarily. Like, because he talks about like wanting to marry her, but the way that like he talks about it, it sounds more like he just wants a friend. Like which again, he does do some very awful things. I am not like an Eric apologist. It bugs me that like in the book, specifically book Rowell's characterization, everybody acts like he's way better, and I'm like, he does like some very similar things in some places. But
well, because I feel like my view of the musical has changed so much in my lifetime because it was one of the first musicals that I was ever introduced to. Because like when I was a kid, Andrew Lloyd Webber was just like huge. So
yeah.
So before even seeing it, like I knew the music for Phantom and like Joseph and like all the other ones. And then in high school, that was what my high school choir teacher did every year was he would take a group of students to Toronto to see Phantom.
Yeah.
And so I saw it twice in high school. And I remember in high school thinking it was not romantic at all because he was just like terrifying and possessive and like really scared. Cause like when you're in the play and like, and all this stuff is happening, it just feels like very scary.
Yeah.
With what's happening. But then the movie came out like, and I was like, try to make him very like almost like a love triangle. Like it was weird.
Yeah, they really, which I know a lot of people hate the movie. I enjoy it as well, but it's another case of like, it's different. But what were you going to say, Kelly?
Yeah, it just felt very different. Like, and I was like, is it because it's like several years late? Like, I can't remember how, I think it was maybe 5 years after I had seen it like in Toronto. And I just like, this is feeling a very different interpretation of the family. And like, and maybe that's because you're seeing him up close. So you're seeing that he's not actually as scary as like, because in the play, I think you're far enough away that you can kind of just infer that he is like more scary or whatever. But when you see him, and I was like, oh, he's not that bad. Like what?
Yeah. Well, and especially because in the movie he's played by Gerard Butler, and they give him like this tiny mask. They're like, we need you to be aware that most of him is still hot. Like,
I mean, he's pretty just good looking, and I'm like, I'm good. Like, it's not that much. Like, what's
it's really not that bad. Yeah, it's like I actually very similarly. It was one of the first musicals that I got like really into, and it's also I think like aside from all of the like plot stuff that just makes Christine and the Phantom like more of like the main couple, also they get like the best songs. Like her and Rowell's song "All I Ask of You," it's pretty, it's fine, but I almost always skip it.
Like, it's not that exciting. It's just kind of
it's not exciting. And I think too, I always think of like Wuthering Heights as the perfect example for this. So like Wuthering Heights, I enjoy a lot, but whenever people complain about it, I'm like, you're right about everything. And one of the things that I think keeps me coming back to Wuthering Heights is it's not that I like feel bad for the characters, like oh, they're not as bad, or like oh, they're misunderstood. Like they're not. They're all like pretty terrible people. The thing that I find moving about it is that like it's sort of like part of the sadness I feel at the end is like what a waste of like human potential almost. And so that is how I feel about like the Phantom as a character. Is I'm not saying like he's misunderstood or like he didn't do these bad things, because he did. it's just like, it's sad because like in the book they even say this more explicitly, that like what he could have been if he wasn't treated this way. Like you find out, and this is like backstory, so I wouldn't consider it a spoiler, but it's like you find out that his mom like made him wear the mask because she couldn't stand to look at him and she thought he was so gross, and she like never let him like touch her or hug her. Like he was like a little kid and he was like completely touch starved. So again, he's still responsible for his choices, but I think that the book, one of the things it highlights is that like part of what made him the way he is that people acted like he was a monster already, just because of what he looks like. I know the movie's 20 years old. What is Emmy Rossum up to these days? Yeah, I really enjoy the movie, and I think it like kept a lot of what I think the big things about the story are. So I enjoy it, but yeah, it's an unpopular opinion. A lot of people hate that movie.
I don't hate it. It's definitely a different interpretation, I feel like.
It is. And it depends too on the stage version, because I have like the DVD of the 25th anniversary with Sierra Boggess and Ramin Karimloo, who I love both of them. And it also depends on like the version that you're seeing, because like, yeah, there's parts like especially in like the Don Juan Triumphant song where it's like, Are you really telling us that we're not supposed to think that the Phantom is like the main romantic lead? Because like that's not the impression you're getting. But
oh man,
yeah. Sorry, Huck, we're just leaving you out again.
I just hit one of my nails.
Oh no! I always do that right after I paint them. Kelly, if you do ever read the book, I'm very excited to talk to you about it because I have a lot of thoughts. As we've been discussing, that's what
there are definitely people who have a lot of thoughts about.
We have a lot of thoughts, especially about books. That's like our whole thing.
Yes, we have the thoughts. We want to talk about them. Yeah. Well, someday.
I actually feel like too, and I know that you read classics, Kelly, so I'm not saying like you're a beginner with classics, but I'm saying for other people who may be hesitant about trying them, it might actually be a good one to start with, because it's a lot more plot focused than classics tend to be. And at least the translation that I read, it's not dense at all. And it's also pretty short. So I feel like, if people are like intimidated about reading classic books, I feel like it's a good one for that as well. But
yeah.
I've been having feelings about that story for like how long now? How many years? Like long time. I think I got into it in high school as well. So
I think I did see the movie a long time ago, and my main takeaway was I want that girl's hair. Like,
oh my gosh, yes.
Hair. Gorgeous hair, yeah. Yep.
So
I think I really got the main, thrust of the story.
Clearly, you came away being very moved by the experience. Like,
yes.
What was this fantasy book that you read that you talked to your friend about forever?
It wasn't a fantasy book. It was a contemporary romance series.
Oh, what was it?
It was The Bergman Brothers by Chloe Leese.
Oh, so like good or bad? Because I have not read anything by.
Oh, I loved it. I have a hard time. Like if I read romance, I really only do like contemporary romance, like the rom-com-y kind of romance. But I always have a hard time like finding things that work for me, because sometimes the romances I just feel like, since it's not a genre I read a lot, like sometimes they feel like too cheesy for me.
Yeah.
Anyways, or like I don't know. Sometimes I get frustrated with romances when it's like the only obstacle here is that you won't talk to each other or something. Like there's no true obstacles. Anyways, this series, I loved it. I read the first book actually a couple years ago and thought it was just fine, but then I was trying to get out of a reading slump, and contemporary romance is sometimes like good for that. So I was like, oh, I'll just like read the next book and see how it goes. And then I like binged the rest of the series, which is 7, 8 books, something. I don't know. It's a lot. And yeah, I had a great time. So it is one of those ones where like it's about the Bergman family. Each book follows a different sibling. And it's called the Bergman brothers, but 2 of them are sisters actually. And I like, I won't go like too in depth with them, but they do have some like sports romance elements, which isn't normally my thing because most of them, they're a very sporty family, but I enjoyed it. They have, I really like that they had, like each one had different like representation usually for like disability or like neurodivergence and like things like that, which I always also is a thing that I really like in contemporary romances. I just appreciate when they have those kind of like representation in them. And I don't know, it just is like so wholesome and I love the characters so much and I love their family so much. It's one of those series that I feel like binging it was really the right way to go because as you read them, like they kind of like each one is its own standalone story, but like you get to know all of the characters because it's like this whole family and their family is very like involved with each other at least once in every book. There's this one of the brothers, Vigo, is like, we're having a Bergman Brothers summit. And so they like if someone's having, whoever's the main character is having some kind of like crisis, usually has to do with the third act breakup, which is usually very brief. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
They have like a summit where they get all the brothers together and they're like, all right, tell us about what's going on. We're going to give you romance advice. And also Vigo reads romance novels and is like pushes them on everybody and is like tells you everything you need to know about romance. It's like, okay.
I have to highlight Natalie's amazing comment before we go on. Phantom of the Coiffure. What that show is really about. Sorry, continue, Huck.
Okay. Yeah, I just like their family so much and how much they all like love each other and they're great. And like of course each book has kind of its own tropes that it follows, but like most of them involve some kind of grumpy sunshine dynamic. And yeah, it just, it was a very fun series and I feel like binging it is kind of the way to go because you really like get to know all of them and they all kind of like come in and out of each other's stories.
Yeah. I have it on like my list of like, I want to read it at some point. So, because I have a friend, like an in real life friend, not like a book.
An in real life friend.
That recommended them. And so I was like, oh, maybe
I will second the recommendation. I'm trying to think. I think the last book in the series is my favorite.
That's always cool.
Yeah. And I think my least favorite was probably the third one, just because that one is about it's a different type of story. And so because it's like about one of the sisters who's already married and then she's having trouble in her marriage. And so then it's about them kind of like fixing their marriage. Which at the time when I was reading it, I was like, this is a lot more emotionally complicated and stressful than what I really want. I want like that like rom-com falling in love.
Yeah.
So it's not that it wasn't good. I just was like, this is a very different vibe than the rest of the series and not what I'm here for.
Yeah. I'm just a hard sell on like pre-existing relationships because like the things that I enjoy about romance is like the buildup. And so if you're already there, even if you're having to fix it so you can get back to this place, I just never find that as interesting. But I understand why people like it as like a kind of variety. Like I just, I guess I'm not one of them. But
also the fourth one, which was maybe my second favorite, that one Yeah, I have not watched Ted Lasso, but that one I pretty sure reads like it's Ted Lasso's fan fiction about a ship that the fandom has. So
I think I need to finish that because my husband and I were watching it and then we stopped watching it. We need to get back to it.
I can't believe this. You just reminded me when you were talking about watching that. I actually have watched a new TV show recently.
yeah.
Look at me. It's the one called Elspeth, and it's like a spin-off of another spin-off to the point where I don't think it even really matters what it's a spin-off of. But I loved it. I think it only just finished its first season, so I'm watching a current show, which is also wild for me. But it's a ton of fun. It's like the main woman, she's very, it's like, okay, the character type is like one that you see a lot because she's like very like quirky and she like solves mysteries, but like in a fun way, blah blah blah. But what I feel like is different is that the show like respects her. Like it's not ridiculous. Like she is fun and quirky, but she's really really smart. And when people meet her, they underestimate her because she like dresses in bright colors and she's like really bubbly and nice to people, and so they're like, you must be an idiot. And she's not, and it's really satisfying to see her be smart. And there's like a great like female friendship that is in there, and like what the setup is like she is sent to I think she's sent to like, is it in New York City or is it like one of the places that's almost in New York City? But like basically her job is to like keep an eye on this police department and like make sure they're doing what they should be doing. And you find out more about exactly what her job is like later. But what ends up happening, of course, is that she solves mysteries with people. But it's so much fun. And it's got a ton of like really fun guest stars. Like Jane Krakowski is in it. Keegan-Michael Key is like the guest star in one of the episodes, and it's a really like interesting take because, and I know other shows have done this, but like you see the murder at the beginning, so you know who it is, and so you're just watching them like figure it out the whole time. And I think one of the things that's smart about that is that then, because they already showed you who it is, they can have that fun guest star be a really important part of the episode because they're not trying to hide that they're the killer, you know? So anyway, sorry. This was like a total tangent. I just got excited because I
know
it.
What
Another
is
mysteries. Pretty soon you're gonna be a mystery person.
I know. What is this?
Like, who am I?
I know. It's really, really fun. And it's a really short first season, so it's not like a super long commitment.
What service is it on?
I think it's just on TV. I don't know what the channel is. Yeah,
real TV.
They still do those, I guess. Let me spell the show's name. I think this is how you spell it, Elspeth. And it's really funny because every time she like introduces herself to people for the first time, because you know, Elspeth is a pretty unusual name. And so sometimes she'll get people where she's like, hi, like my name is Elspeth. And they're like, what kind of name is that? And she's like, frustrating. Like it's just really funny. So
I keep
anyway,
like bonking. I don't know what it is about this hand, but like now I've done it twice. Where I've bonked. Got like a big divot.
Oh no.
So you sit here. Should brought a hairdryer.
You have to just like, yeah.
Don't touch anything.
That's the way to go.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide if I care or not, or if I should just like let it go. Let it go.
I am always like so careful, and yet it doesn't matter. I always like chip immediately. Yeah. So I feel your pain, Kelly.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't need it to last forever. I just would like to be like, not that I messed it up the first 20 minutes.
Yeah. What always happens to me is like I have to paint my nails like in the morning. Otherwise, they never dry enough, and like I'll think they're dry, and then I go to bed, and in the morning they have like fabric imprints, and I'm like, like even if it's dried for hours and I don't understand. So I'm like, I have to paint my nails first thing in the morning so that by the time I go to sleep, they are dry.
Yeah, I had that happen to me a couple weeks ago because I waited too long. I did them at like 7 p.m. and I'm like, well, that's too late because now. So then, yeah, the next morning they were all like covered in.
You sleep like this?
Yeah,
exactly. That yes.
But I thought today I'm like, I'm done, and it's 6 p.m. I've got several hours to let them just like stand.
Yep.
Yeah, this is why I don't do it very often, but I don't know. Like, I've been growing them out nicer and not like breaking them. In the winter, they like break all the time. And so now I feel like they're less dry, and I'm like, oh, they're actually a little long.
This is reminding me that I should paint mine soon.
Every time I try to grow up my nails, I just get frustrated. Like, I just don't like the feeling of it.
Yeah.
So there's a point where I'm just like, nope. Like,
Yeah.
Every time I'm like, I want to have longer nails. Like, I don't want the crazy long nails, just like a little bit. And it's like,
Yeah.
No. One of the things that annoys me is like a lot of times if I'm reading and if I'm like lying down and I put my hand on my book to hold the page open, and then like if my nails are too long, it's like the nail presses against the paper before my finger does. And I'm just like, I can't do this. I hate how this feels.
I have never had that.
I notice like, because I don't have my nails like super long usually. I think actually I keep them even shorter than I did like when I was in like high school, just because like I've gotten more annoyed with long nails as I've gotten older. And it's like the thing that I notice that I hate like the sensation of is when I'm like crafting or something. Like there's something about like, because you're using your fingers constantly.
Yeah.
And there's like something about the sensation of like working so much with your hands and your nails are just a little bit too long that I find unbearable. Like, and if I've been like lazy and I've been putting off like cutting my nails again, and then if I pick up my knitting and start, I'm like, oh no, this is happening like tonight. Like I can't do this, which I guess is good. But it motivates me.
I think I like just got used to not having nails because when I was younger, for one thing, I used to bite my nails when I was little.
Oh, me too.
And so there's that. And then also I, played harp. And if like you can't have long nails because they would catch on the strings, so I had to keep them short. And so I just like never got used to having longer nails. Although not yesterday, but the other day I was sewing and my nails were like a little bit longer. And I was like, this is so useful because I can pick up pins more easily.
Yeah.
So that is a benefit.
Yeah.
Or like sometimes if I'm peeling stickers off apples, I'm like, yes. This is so much simpler.
Yeah, it does have its advantages.
Yeah.
Mine are like not that long. I mean, they're not that much above my fingers, like barely. I can't take it when it's like I'm typing at work, and if it
typing is another one.
Yeah, so that's when I know I'm like, well, gotta trim it because I don't like it when it does that. But I just get proud when they're even like at my fingers because as a kid I bit like all the way down, and it was kind of a long-term problem. So I'm glad I don't do that.
I also bit my nails for quite a while when I was younger. Like, I feel.
I actually just cut my nails today, so they're very, very short right now.
I ran out of water. Okay. It was empty.
Well, we usually go about 3 hours, so we actually could be wrapping up in the next few minutes if you guys want to anyway. But up to you.
Yeah, it's probably about time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think my husband is figuring out dinner, so I guess that's probably going to be happening soon.
Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything. We can give it like a few more minutes if we want.
Okay.
We can start easing into the cooldown, the crafting cooldown.
What's the crafting cooldown?
I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, I haven't been crafting for a long time. I finished doing my thing, and I wrote down a couple books for a TBR that I don't think I'm actually going to read, but they're there.
Ooh, what are they?
In the tradition of TBRs, everyone.
It's a secret.
I just want to know. I mean, I'm the same way. I like write them down, and then I get all excited, and then I don't read those.
Like the best way to guarantee I won't read a book is to put it on TBR. I will tell you one of them, which is Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse, because it's the last book in the Earth and Sky trilogy, and it just came out. Which I actually haven't gotten it yet. I forgot to pre-order it, so I need to get that.
I just realized, and I could not believe this was true. I realized I forgot to pre-order Anna Marie Macklemore's new book.
They have a new
Shame
book?
on me. Shame on me. I'm a fake fan. Yeah. I think it just came out. It's called something like, is it Mirror Girls or?
I saw Bethany review it. That's the only person I've seen review it so far.
Yeah.
I have. So Huck, when you read
Flawless Girls, that's what it's called.
When you read Mirrored Heavens, I want to know if you're like, you have to send me like a thumbs up or a neutral, because I want to start the first book, but I want to know
if it ends well,
that it like, or that I just will enjoy the whole like story arc, because it seems kind of intense, like from what people review. So I don't want to like get into something super intense and then it like kind of does a downward slide, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I loved the first one. I thought the second book was okay, but it had a lot of things that I'm like, this feels like a second book, you know, where it's just like a bridge. So yes, I'm really hoping that this last one like ends with a bang, and I will let you know.
Like, go read the first one, because I have the first one, I own it, and I'm like, but I was waiting to read it until the third one came out, because I've also heard like other people being like, oh, I have to reread it because it's kind of more involved, and I was like, well, then I should just wait until they're all out, and
well, and I feel like it's safer to do that when it's like a high profile series like that, because you know there's always the danger that like, and I know that authors have talked about like, even though they understand the desire to like marathon a series or to have it all out, it's like one of the things that keeps a publisher like picking up a series is if it's selling and people are like reading it. But I feel like with Rebecca Roanhorse, like she's a big enough author that like that trilogy was going to get finished. I'm like, you know, no matter what happens. So it feels like, yeah, that's a good one to wait on.
And I totally get that, but I'm also a very forgetful person. So like when they space them out, like sometimes it's a year, but sometimes it's 2 years between books.
Yeah.
I'm not going to remember. And
oh my
I
gosh,
don't have time to reread everything. Like,
yeah.
So
this year, the next book in the Lost Queen trilogy by Signe Pike is coming out at the end of the year. I'm pretty sure it's been like 4 years since the last book came out. I'm just like, I don't remember anything. It might be 3 years, but it's been a long time.
Yeah. So that whole like week, you're gonna be like, nobody talk to me. I'm in my cave. Like,
I know. I guess am I gonna have to reread them? I don't know. I don't usually like go back and reread a book before the new release, but there usually isn't such a huge gap. So I guess I'm gonna have to decide if I'm gonna do that.
Adley says the series I Love by Olivia Cole is not finished because the publisher never bought the final book, and it's killing me. Yeah, I hate that. I've been burned enough by something like this happening that I think it has slightly changed how I feel about finales. Like, not that I'm like easier on them than other books, but it's like there's been some like series finishers that like a lot of people who review them were like not super satisfied with, and they'll be like, you know, this thing wasn't resolved, or I didn't like how this played out. And like I can definitely I complain about lots of series finales, but I do sometimes wonder if like sometimes the specific things that people don't like or they didn't find like satisfying, I'm like, I'm just happy we got a book. Like this has happened to me enough that I'm like, oh, I actually get to read the ending of this story. I'm grateful.
Yeah. I just need to get back to finishing series. I feel like before BookTube, I used to finish series, but that might just be an illusion too, because I mean, maybe not like, or maybe I just wasn't reading series that much. I mean, I had read like Hunger Games, but I'm trying to think of any other series that I finished even before my channel. Maybe I wasn't like a series person, but I feel like I just never finished series.
Yeah.
And I want to, but I just like move on to something else. And then when I come back, I'm like, I have forgotten everything that's happened. Do I want to reread? And then if I even start to read it, like that's what I did with Tamara Pierce with the Immortals Quartet. It's taken me so long because I have had to reread every single book because I've waited too long.
At least they're short books, though.
But then I waited another. Like I had finished the third one, I guess towards the end of last year. And so like if I can read it now, I'll be good. But what'll happen is I might not read it until the end of this year, and then I'm like, well, now I have forgotten. So I should just go and pick it up now and finish it now that it hasn't been that long.
I almost never reread in order to continue a series. Like I'll reread books that I like just enjoy, but it's really rare that I go back and reread. And like 95% of the time I'm fine, but once in a while it bites me in the butt because I'm like, I really should have reread this because I have no idea who these people are. Like what is even happening?
I remember because I was trying to decide if I was going to read Nevermore or not, and so I watched your review of the first and second book recently, like before I decided to read it, and you even said in the second one, you're like, I didn't reread, and I didn't remember her best friend at all.
Yeah. I literally forgot she even had a best friend.
Which I thought was hilarious because it's kind of a big part of the ending of the book. But
I know. I mean, I found those books underwhelming as well, so maybe that's part of it. But yeah, that was one of the few cases where I'm like, you know, revisiting the other book would have perhaps helped me.
Yeah, I actually don't know if I'm going to continue in that series because it's not even finished. And I guess this last one has been like several years that it's been pushed back. And I just didn't love the first book. I was like,
it's really fine. It's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's like, it's one of those where like I'm glad that it's getting a lot of people into middle grade who like adults who like haven't read it in a long time, but I just don't think it's anything special. And I think one of the things that bothers me the most about it, and especially like the second book, I feel like had this problem a lot, is like I feel there's a really weird tone problem. Like it doesn't know if it wants to be like really whimsical and fun and silly and everybody rides around on umbrellas, but then there's like subplots where it's like this is like human trafficking. Like why? Like I'm not even exaggerating, that is a subplot in the second book, and it's wild to me. Like not that you can't have that kind of contrast, because I think sometimes that can be very intentional and really good, like really well done. But to me, this doesn't feel intentional. It feels like what am I supposed to feel about these things? Like, is this like fun? Or is this like really messed up and nobody noticed? Like, I don't know. I'm not a fan, but.
My internet came out again, so I missed your whole like rant. So
oh no.
It's okay. I probably won't continue because it took me forever to read that first book, so I'm just not caring.
Yeah. TLDR of what I was complaining about is like I feel there's a really big tone disconnect. Yeah. It's like fun and whimsical, but also there's like these really despicable things happening that nobody is that bothered by. And also just the bullying of Morgan. And then in the second book, and this isn't like specific spoilers or anything, in the second book, it's like basically more of the same because of other plot things that happened. It's like, you mean I get to read another book of everybody just being awful to Morgan for the whole freaking story? Like, why?
Yeah. And there were like, I don't know. I'm also I said this in my review, and I'm going to stand by it, that I have this problem that since Harry Potter, the end books were so long, now it feels like these middle grade fantasy writers are like, well, I can write a 500, 600 page book and it's fine because kids will read it. And I'm like, the difference is Harry Potter did not start out as a 500 page book. You know, start out with a smaller book, and then once people are invested in your world, make it bigger. But Nevermore started with a 550 600 page book. And I'm like, you're giving me too much at once. I can't get invested in the character because you're introducing like 100 people here, and I'm supposed to remember them all. Like, yeah, it was too much in the first book. You know, like, so, and I feel like there's several series that have had that problem now that are trying to be like, you know, that same thing of like, I can write a huge middle grade book and it'll be fine. I'm like, that's not really, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing about it too is like, yes, you can write middle grade books that are really long if the story supports that. Like, I feel like Nevermore did not need to be that long. Like, it could have been like a standard like 300 page book and been absolutely fine. So I think, there's like this feeling that because you can, you should. Like, you must write only like 500 plus fantasy books.
Yeah, and I was even physically reading it in the moment and thinking, this whole chapter could have been taken out, and it was anything in this story, and that would have saved us like 20 pages there. So if we had that happen, like it happened a couple times, where I'm like, this could have all been taken out.
This is the book version of this could have been an email.
It was bad, and that's why I was like, there was good parts in it, but I'm like, man, if this is gonna be how all the books are, like this person should have like had an editor, like telling them, tighten it up, like. And I feel like there's several series that I've gotten into like that like I felt the same way with Keeper of the Lost Cities. I did like the series, but I kind of gave up halfway because they're so long and they do not need to be that long. Yeah. There's just major pacing issues and stuff. And I'm like, you could have taken out big chunks. I don't even care if you need to add more books to make it like spread, but like one book does not have enough content to be, and they're like 700 pages long. They're not even just 500. They're huge.
I'm not even at like the super, super long ones yet. I think I've only read the first 3 books maybe, but yeah, like they're just so drawn out when they don't need to be. Yeah, and it's like I think of like all these other middle grade fantasy writers who it's like they tell full, complete, well told stories in like 350 pages, like it is possible. Like you don't need to have like when you're a good storyteller, like I feel like you don't need that much padding. And I know like Jordan Ifueko obviously writes YA, not middle grade, but like me and Kelly being, the Stan Club for Jordan Ifueko is like that's a duology. And it has more like world building and like character development and like themes and all of that than like multi-book adult series I have read. So it's possible.
I need to look it up because doesn't she have a new book?
She does. I'm so excited.
But is it coming out this year?
Yes. I would have been excited no matter what. But when I looked at the description, I'm like, this looks extra good. I'm extra excited. Yeah. And Huck, I know you've read the first. Did you also read the second book? I can't remember.
This is Raybearer, right?
Yeah.
I read the first one. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, is this taking place in the same world?
Yes, I think so.
Oh yeah, because it says no prior knowledge of the Raybearer series necessary, but it's saying in Goodreads it has Raybearer, like where they put the series. So I'm wondering if it just is taking place in that world.
I think so, yeah. And they always, like, I don't think Goodreads is very good at, like, communicating how much prior knowledge is necessary. Like, because when I started reading the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, which I'm still very shocked at how much I enjoyed that first book, but they made the claim that, like, oh, you can read this without reading the Caraval books, which I had been iffy on anyway. So I was like, great. And I read the first one and I can follow it. You can follow it, no problem. But it's one of those series where it's like, okay, so this isn't just set in the same world. This like literally spoils the entire previous series. So I'm like, I guess I got to go back if I care at all. So, yeah.
Well, I just looked at the cover and it's gorgeous. And then because I have the British covers.
I
of the
love
reader,
the UK ones.
Yeah.
They're so pretty. Yeah.
and I just checked and like there's 2 different covers. I don't know which one is the American version, which one the UK, but they're both gorgeous. So I'm just gonna like buy one of them, whichever.
Yeah.
One. I might end up getting the British one because I need to get the second in this series, the Threads That Bind. I need to buy the second one, and I
Yes.
have to get it from the UK because they only are out in hardcover right now, and it's coming out I think next week, and so it's in the United States going to be hardcover, and I'm like, well, but I have the UK paperback. I need to have a paperback.
I got the UK paperback for that one too, so I feel you. And isn't the author also Greek herself, which I think is kind of cool for like a Greek mythology retelling. I feel like we don't see that super often.
Does it say in the back? I'm trying not to touch anything so I don't mess up my nail again.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Oh, she splits her time between London and her native Greece. So yes, she's Greek. Well, that's interesting. It makes me like even more excited because I feel like, she has like more claim over Greek than, because like
right.
It's just like everybody seems to claim it, but really like she's actually from the country that has that mythology.
It's like there's definitely like kinds of stories or like retellings where it's like it's been in like the public canon for so long that I can see why it's not viewed the same way. But I also think it is cool that like we do have somebody who's actually from that country who's telling it. I think that's kind of cool. So,
Huck, are you getting bored now?
No, not at all. I'm like getting sleepy because like so it's not at all that I'm being bored. I just like I don't know. Every once in a while, just like at a certain time of day, it just sort of hits me that I'm like, I'm tired now.
Yeah, powering down. And Elisa, hello. We are wrapping up, I think, slowly, but thank you for being here for the end here.
You can rewind and watch the beginning.
there is much more talking that you can enjoy that we
You can hear our Bridgerton talk at the beginning and
spoilers retroactively.
Yeah,
spoilers for Bridgerton, which we did not announce at the time.
Yeah, and I feel like you stayed away from like big ones, but there is definitely discussion of some plot threads. Yeah, I feel like this sprint, even more than our others, it's been like taking turns of like having conversations that only 2 of us know. Because it was like you and Kelly and me and Huck at one point, me and Kelly at one point. So I feel like everyone, we did it very democratically. We got
it's good. We've like at least like gotten everybody.
It balances out. Out.
No, but actually that works out for me. It's just sometimes it's good that I'm like, I'm just gonna listen for a few minutes. I don't. Yeah. It works out for me to not like talk the entire time. So
you can have a little rest. Yeah.
Well, I think It Smells Like Pizza might be done soon. So
all right, so we are going to wrap up. Thank you, Kelly and Huck, for hanging out and crafting and talking. They are both linked below, so please check them out if you're interested. As we have discussed, the post schedule may vary, but their content is always great. Thank you guys for those of you who were hanging out with us, and also I know we get people who watch it back later, so thank you for that. I am not going to say when we'll do another one because we really intended to do this much earlier, but as we've discussed, there's been a lot of like big changes and big things that happen. So hopefully not as long a break as before, but other than that, I can't promise. So thank you guys and have a good rest of your weekend.
Bye. Bye.
Now we get to end stream for like 10